afternoon. I like to talk to audiences of young people. You have your future ahead of you. Uh, Prefer not to talk to old people because, they're old and their futures are largely behind them. And so I want to talk about your future. Oh, by the way, I'm an old person. I get to make old people jokes. You do not. Let's be clear on who can make old people jokes. I've been at the University of Waterloo for 40 years, so that'll give you a sense of my antiquity. But what I want to do is share with you some of the observations I share with my students as they try to find their way forward. And I want to talk about the power of problem analysis. I can hear, I can hear your hearts beating with the excitement of talking about problem analysis. But it is the heart of your success, ladies and gentlemen, and if you think otherwise, you're making a huge mistake. So let's start. Let's start with the fundamentals. I've been a faculty member for this long period of time. I specialize in labor economics, so that means a great specialization in career and career development. And I've worked with literally thousands of students, helping them define their careers. So if I can say a few useful things this afternoon to help you figure out what your destiny is, then I am pleased to do so. And we're going to try to provide a reasonable amount of time for Q&A that will be conducted through the chat with Farah. So I'd like to just sort of begin. I want to make a few key points. First, let us deal with that horrible, dumb question of people who insist on asking you what you want to do when you grow up. Sometimes you ask that question of yourself. Now, it's a dumb question whether somebody else asks it or whether you ask it of yourself. Because what do you want to be when you grow up? It implies a static question. It implies that there is some destination, and once you reach it, you will be fine. The only sensible answer when someone asks you so goofy a question is to say, I am a work in progress. Stay tuned for updates, period. And that work in progress that each of you should be as an individual ends the day you draw your last breath and not before. It is inherently a journey, supposed to be a journey. So when they ask you, that's the answer. Interesting, by the way. And that's a real answer, by the way. Work in progress. I'll let you know what happens. Or site under construction. Stay tuned for announcements. And don't say anything else. And let the person who asked you that goofy question react. Now they might react. They might not know what to say, or they might say something that now is more useful to you than that goofy original question. It's a dynamic idea, what you will do with your life. And I'm here to try to give a little cautionary note about don't waste your time. We're going to talk about time wasting. You young men and women, you've huge runway in front of you. You know what? You can't afford to waste a little time. And inevitably you will. And don't get paranoid about it. You'll go down a few blind alleys. You'll take a few courses that in retrospect you shouldn't have taken and turn into unsatisfactory experiences. You eat some exotic food because they were really cool and you throw up all night. Those are mistakes. Who cares? It's part of experiencing your world. But you are like any rational person trying to minimize the number of blind alleys. There will be some. We can't eliminate them. Wouldn't wish to eliminate them. If you had no blind alleys, I mean, you never got out of bed in the morning and never tried to do anything. We want you to try to do things. We want you to try to do them aggressively. So naturally, some mistakes will take place, but let's minimize the number as much as we can. So back to the career question. So, okay, maybe somebody asks a more sensible question. What do you want to be? And it might be, what occupation, what career are you planning? Especially if you're going to post-secondary education, which I hope you all are. That question may arise. Now, again, that one's a slight on the intellectual food chain, a little higher than this B thing. But it's also not much higher, because when the person asks the question, they want you to specify an occupation, a clearly defined, societally approved occupation. I'm going to be an engineer, going to be a physician, going to be a chef, going to, and that's supposed to end the subject. You cite going to be an entrepreneur, going to start a business, those are all occupations. And occupation isn't quite the same thing as your destiny. I want to talk about your talent. That's what I want to talk about, which is not necessarily your occupation, or it doesn't fit the idea of occupation alone. Occupation is a nice little neat box. Once I have become an engineer, accountant, lawyer, entrepreneur, physician, you name it, baker, that implies it again. You stop. I finally got through all the education, all this kind of goofy stuff, and now I can stop worrying about it. I have now reached 26. I have an occupation. Now I'm going to get on with life. Yeah, well, that's an illusion, ladies and gentlemen. If you're interested in your talent, if you just want to make a buck and stay out of the cold, okay, maybe that's enough. Sure, you don't attend programs like this solely because that's your aspiration. I would get a nice average job, live in a nice average house, buy an average car, find an average companion to be a partner with, have 1.2 average children, earn an average income, retire as soon as I can, and then play golf till I die. This is hardly a very imaginative plan, do you think? I want to suggest something rather different. So for goodness sakes, abandon the question about what occupations you want to join, because it's a question of saying what box into which do you wish to climb? What little nice, neat, nice little box do you want to get into? Like, why would you climb into a constrained space? You don't like doing that when you're children. I know when you were a little kid and your mother put you in a crib, you screamed bloody murder because you didn't like the confinement of the thing. You wanted. Notice the tense. You wanted freedom when you were young. And now you're growing up, you're teens, and now you understand the world is going to give you limitations. And some of you seem more willing than you should be to engage in those limitations. Because if I am an accountant, I am therefore not an engineer. If I'm an engineer, therefore not a surgeon. If I am a surgeon, therefore I am not an architect. If I'm an architect, therefore I'm not, whoa, limitations. Let's talk about what the real question should be at this very special age, with lots of runway, options open, no door closed, or almost no door closed at this stage of the game. And you say to yourself, this is the best question. What problems do I like solving? Don't tell me you haven't solved any problems thus far. You certainly have. You could not have gotten through the school system without solving a few problems. Some of them you hate. Some of them you force yourself to solve. Doesn't matter what the problem is, and different members of you like or dislike certain kinds of problems. But this is not about what you want to be. This is what problem does really engage your interest. What mathy problem do you like? Or do you like no mathy problems at all? What historical problems fascinate you? What artistic problems fascinate you? What, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. These are interesting. So you start. If you're interested in your talent, rather than just earning a living in some boring environment. What kind of problems, or problem set? It could be more than one kind of problem. Does your mind naturally get pulled towards? Oh, well, valuable information. Because then it's a simple another question. Okay, I like solving this kind of problem. Now, how can I arrange it so someone gives me money to solve the problem? There, your whole career is, that's the issue. I like solving this problem, people give me money. Isn't that the plan? Any other, oh yeah, there's some details, but if that's not fundamentally the plan, then what are you doing? You see, I would not have had to make this comment to you when you were 12. It really annoys me that as you get older, you get, no, I'm not having a senior moment. I'm trying to think of a polite word that won't offend you. Okay, I'll say it. This isn't the ideal word I'd use, but I'll say less interesting than you were when you were 12. Near me is a public conservation area. Like anybody else, I've got cabin fever from being cooped up from the pandemic. So I go walking in the forest to clear my brain. It's a natural forest. It is not a park. I like parks. I like natural forests with trees falling down and natural vegetation. It is preserved to guard the environment along a ravine with a stream. Really nice place to walk. And as you walk through it, there are of course trails upon which you are supposed to walk. I of course refuse to walk on the trails because I do not like limitations that are bogus and have no functional purpose whatsoever. I know how to walk in the forest without trampling the wildlife. And when I walk in the forest, I see the handiwork and I see the handiwork of children. What do you do? What goes on in this conservation area? The conservation area tries to stop. I've walked in this conservation area for decades. For decades, the neighborhood children, generations of neighborhood children have come into the woods to do work, to solve problems that interest them. And the conservation authorities try to stop them relentlessly. Children build things and the park authorities try to unbuild them. They created barriers to stop them. Barriers, physical barriers. A beautiful natural area, and they erect an ugly barrier solely to stop 12-year-olds. Because after all, 12-year-olds are a menace. No, what those 12-year-olds are doing is problem solving. And they solve a variety of problems. They solve navigation problems when they want to sail boats down the stream and there's a rock in the road, they will move it. Outrageous, isn't it? Children doing engineering because they got a problem. They wish to sail a little tiny boat, a little toy boat, and they can't get through the rock, so they move it. Authorities do not like that. Will shout at the children if they're moving the rocks. Other children want to build like houses. So they drag assembled pieces of debris and wood and they design a house for them to do things in the house. They build a roof. It's kind of a strange looking creation, but it's coming out of their imagination. They are solving problems. They have a problem. They have imaginations. They want to satisfy their imaginations, and they do so. And what do? They're doing work. Idiot adults call it play. Play is running around in circles playing golf. That's play. And then adults call it recreation. It's a good thing. House building is work. Children work at it. They plot, they scheme, they acquire resources, forage them from from the neighbors. Usually, well, let's not talk about how they forage the stuff. They get it, they build it. It's work. They are solving the problem, and they have to solve the problem. How do they build a house that doesn't fall down on their head? 12-year-olds aren't stupid. They know that big chunk of wood should not fall on their head. They will not like the result if it does. So they design these little structures for themselves. Boys and girls working as teams is almost always a team effort because it takes a pack of children to actually drag big pieces of wood around. Reminds me of the building of the damn pyramids. And then, of course, there are the mountain bikers, the dirt bikers, little kids with their bikes. Now, you know very well, a little kid with a bike does not like riding it on a sidewalk because it's, from the little kid's point of view, boring. The little kid's problem is boring, boring. And it does not allow that kid to develop his skills with that bike. He or she wants to do that. So what do? They go in the forest and they desecrate the forest by building their own ramps. They build trails through the forest, which is a prohibited activity. They build ramps so they can jump. Jump. And they build banked curves like in the Indy 500 car races. So they can go as fast as they can. Again, they drag wood and dirt and build all these things. Children, if you leave them alone, natural problem solvers. They know what their destiny as a human being is. To find something that's important to them. Like, I want to practice my skill biking. I want to understand what building a house out of random pieces of wood would look like. Would it look like something I've seen in the movies, or would it look like something I've never seen before? Children will organize themselves, all in the interest of joint problem solving. And you know what? That's the part of your brain you should not have lost. That's the part of your brain that is valuable. That natural impulse of the kid. The energy, the focus. They're solving the problems that they care about. Then, of course, you go to school and somehow you have some fantasy that other people tell you what problems to solve because, well, that is actually what happens. And you suddenly acquiesce in it. No, I'm not suggesting you should riot in your schools. I am suggesting that when the school asks you to do a certain problem, solve it. You might surprise yourself and decide you like it. But that is not how you define who you are. That is not how you define your destination of your journey that will never end. It is not how you should satisfy your talent. I want you to find problems you love first. And secondly, I am problem obsessed. And then as soon as you know what kinds of problems you, which as a near adult person, you should be starting to figure out. And if you haven't, get at it. Start thinking about all the things you like doing, not like doing, problems you like solving. You must make it more specific. What kind of problem does my mind like solving? Not what do I like to do? I like to eat cheese puffs. Fine. I'm glad you like cheese puffs, but it's nothing to do with your life's work. Your life's work are the problems you like solving. Then you think, okay, if I like solving this problem, what kind of education do I need to get better at solving this problem? How do I get credibility so people will let me solve this problem and pay me money to do so? Those are technical questions. The strategy, the fundamental question is, what problems do you like solving? And of course, at your ages, you should practice on different kinds of problems. You're older, so the problems of a 12-year-old are quite straightforward. Learn how to bike, learn how to build structures, learn how to stretch their physical ability to see if they can go down an 80-degree slope with their bike. Answer is they can't without near damaging themselves. They learn that and stop doing it. You now should have a wider array of kinds of problems you're solving. That's what your school can help you with, by the way. Now, the next element of this, of course, is solve important problems. Once you find your problem space, the problems that your mind cannot stop thinking about. Gee, I like distracted teenagers. Where they're in a room and their brain is somewhere else. Now, their brain is somewhere else because they're playing a mindless video game because they're bored, silly, because they're not hearing anything interesting. Okay, maybe worth complaining about. But your mind may have gone to that which it loves, to the subject it likes thinking about, to the topics it likes thinking about. Well, for goodness sakes, notice where your distractions come from. And notice some are unhelpful to you, but others reflect that interest, that desire to solve the problem. Now, we want you to solve important problems. What happens is, my students at the University of Waterloo, they start understanding, okay, that they should solve problems that they find interesting, personally interesting, that they enjoy. They will discover, among other things, that it's easier to get through their courses because they really want to actually understand the answer because they want to solve the problem. And if they're in the right place, it works really well. Now the teacher's telling them how to solve the problem even at a higher level. They like that. Remember, we have students who read their textbooks for fun, competing against the students who read it because they gotta. Who do you suppose does better, both in the course and in the game of life? You know the answer. But having done that, many of our students then make a mistake. Okay? They've identified the problem they love. Now, of course, the only problem they want to solve is the one they trip over or the teacher tells them about, as opposed to saying, okay, I have this interest in solving problems. I'm going to solve ever more important problems. That's the next step. If you're interested in your talent, I'm going to solve ever more important problems, better and better problems. Some of you are interested in starting your own enterprise. Brilliant. Here's what you should not do. Please do not solve problems you trip over in the bathroom. This is a real product created by real people. It is really dumb. Guess what? And by the way, it's expensive. It is hinged metal, stainless steel. The molds to create this are very expensive. created by an independent business. Independent business, good thing. We like that. So do I. It has a little plastic wheel thing. So what is this goofy thing? So thousands and thousands of dollars invested in its development and marketing and design. By the way, then they left something off with the design. We'll get to in a moment. So what is this strange device? I'll tell you what it is. Some want to be entrepreneur who's interested in solving design problems. Okay, that's a good problem to be interested in solving. Unfortunately, solved a problem he tripped over. He's in the bathroom, brushing his teeth, trying to get toothpaste out of the tube. Some of you are challenged in the morning because you've trouble getting up before noon, and therefore getting that toothpaste out of the tube is an intellectual challenge. You squeeze too hard and too much comes out. And when at the end, when the toothpaste is like half empty, it's hard to get it out. Imagine the trouble, the problem, the social anxiety caused by the fact that the toothpaste is stuck in the tube. Do you really think that's one of society's great problems? This is a toothpaste tube dispenser. You put the toothpaste in the thing. There's a little edge where the nozzle goes in. This you thread around the end of the thing. You close this and wind it on this big green knob. Thousands of dollars. Don't go to Shoppers Drug Mart and try to buy it because you think it's a cool thing. Try to sell it. Sold practically none. It also has a design flaw. It's supposed to be screwed against the wall of the bathroom. It is too close. The nozzle is too close to the bathroom wall, and you end up, because I tried it. I prepare for these lectures. I don't just talk at you randomly. We tried it. As a practical matter, it's too close to the wall, and the toothpaste, if you can't actually get it out, squeezing its little green wheel, smears against the wall, makes an unsightly mess. Didn't sell, never sold. That's an example of a dumb problem that you tripped over. If you thought about it rationally, are 100 million people having anxiety because that they can't get their toothpaste out? What is crazy, of course, is every couple of years a new one comes along. A new toothpaste tube dispenser. And then it fails like the one before it. Here's another one. I have a whole collection of toothpaste tube dispensers. I have a whole collection of like failed goofy products. This one's even stupider. This is mint in box, by the way, as a collector's item. It's like severely cool. For those of you who have ever been know anything about construction, it actually is a small version of a caulking gun, which you can find in home hardware. They're designed for real building purposes. Here, you put this thing, toothpaste tube in it, and you crank it. So it's like you take your tube and you go crank, crank. How many do they sell? Almost none. Expensive plastic molding. Huge waste of effort. The problem is not important. People don't think it's important. Doesn't sell. The waste of time, talent, and energy in that is boggling. Now you think, of course, those were independent businesses. Now you think, well, that's what independent businesses often make that mistake. Do they really? Here's another one. Crest toothpaste, Procter & Gamble. You know the brand. Big deal, huge, gigantic personal care company. This is also their version of the toothpaste tube dispensers. They make toothpaste, so they think, okay, we'll make a toothpaste tube dispenser. It's a really cool thing, works with a vacuum, and it sucks the toothpaste out. Here's the top nozzle. Push the nozzle, sucks it up. Convenient dispensing of toothpaste. Procter & Gamble, ignoring all the failed products that preceded it, big corporation that it is, then proceeded to create this thing. Don't go to Shoppers Drug Mart looking for it. It came and it went in a flash. Don't make mistakes, ladies and gentlemen. Solve the most important problem. Let me tell you the most horrendous problem that was mistaken. A trivial problem. A problem got wrong. I watched it happen. John Kennedy stood in the Congress of the United States and announced that by the end of the decade, by the end of the 60s, 1960s, yes, 1,000 years ago, that the United States would put a man on the moon. Mr. President, why? Why is that such an important problem? Billions and billions and billions of dollars spent. They succeeded, by the way. Thousands of the most talented men and women in America brought together to work on this project. And nobody knew what problem they were solving. Oh, because we're going to explore, we're going to leave the planet. They went, planted a flag, came home. The entire team is dismantled. And it's more than half a century later. On Mr. Kennedy's desk at the time, there was an important problem in space exploration that he'd been offered. He actually had two options. First, it was thought that it was proposed to him that they should send only machines to the moon because it would be much cheaper and the effort could be sustained. Glamorous, but would work. They had robots already by that time, more primitive than the ones of today, but still they did. And they would have poured billions of dollars into robotic development, which means it would be more advanced today than it is. The other proposal was, still using machines in the beginning, was to create a near-Earth orbit space station. Now imagine, we have one, a sort of glorified string of tin cans bolted together, floating around for a handful of people. Imagine what the space station would look like today if its development had begun in 1960. Mr. Kennedy's improper analysis of the problem facing him, his casual, let's just go. We'll figure out why we're going later. And there was no reason to go. Or at least that was the wrong way to go. The technology all now wasted, all has to be reinvented. The International Space Station is a pitiful thing compared to what it could have been. And Mr. Kennedy's decision caused space technology to be delayed a half a century. He took all of space technology and lost half a centuries of progress. And young Larry, who thought he was gonna go into orbit as a tourist, is never gonna go. And it'll be a miracle if your grandchildren get off this planet. Because of the general, keeping in mind problem analysis, not much better applied to space technology now than that time so long ago. We want you to identify important problems. That's problems worthy of your talent. I'll give you a couple of examples. So some of you are thinking, okay, well, maybe that's okay, but like, what can I do while still stuck in secondary school? Please stop thinking of yourself as stuck in secondary school. You'll escape soon enough and then wonder that you should have enjoyed it a little more. So a couple of my students have just raised, in total, $175 million. Most recently, $150 million. Now, I hope you young men and women think $150 million for their business is like a significant amount of money. Farah, is it a significant amount of money? Yes, it most certainly is. The School of Accounting and Finance is under no illusion that for a Canadian enterprise, $175 million in total is a good thing. And what did they do? They took two things in their secondary school. They saw this inside the secondary school. They saw one activity that the secondary school, when they were in it, and today in your school, an activity that the school, strongly encourages, spends a lot of time and energy trying to get this activity done. And they took that activity and said, I think we could make a business out of this by combining it with one of the activities your secondary school today actively discourages, goes to a lot of trouble to stop you from doing it. Now, the School of Accounting and Finance has really cool swag, and we're going to give it to the person who tells me what those two things were. What was the encouraged thing and what was the discouraged thing, and what made that turn into $175 million? You should use chat, and they're going to tell me what some of the suggestions are.
Yes, please send all your answers in the chat to all panelists, and So one person said sports and violence.
Sports and violence? Well, both one encouraged and one discouraged for sure. Yes, but that's meets the criteria, but that did not turn into $175 million worth of business. Other ones?
Someone said core math and phone usage.
Oh, someone's getting kind of close.
Someone else said
The cool
using
swag,
self.
by the way, time to take, or they have to, oh, they'll give the swag to me instead of to you. Go ahead, fair.
So the swag is SAF notebook, SAF pen, laptop stickers, and also a pad folio. So whoever gets the first one gets those prizes. Someone else said academics and alcohol.
No, good suggestions, not the right one yet. By the way, the same thing goes on in elementary school, if you need a hint. Now
So we have
they came to this idea in secondary school, but it could have been they could have the same two activities as encouraged and discouraged are in elementary schools. Other suggestions?
so we got one person said math and games.
Bingo. That person gets the swag.
Congrats.
They have congratulations. Math is hard to teach, and they are engaged in what's called gamification, which is to turn the learning of math into highly engaging video/computer games. And I draw that to your attention so that you understand that within your own secondary school, you can find important problems, and you couldn't even take action on them if you wished. So when we say, don't do the stupid things like the toothpaste tube dispenser, we didn't say that you couldn't learn from your immediate environment. There are important problems going on in your secondary school. Notice what they are. And that team of students has built a large and successful enterprise. Now, they've been at it for 10 years. It takes time to build an enterprise, but they are. Give you one more. There's another batch of swag, right? We're the School of Accounting and Finance is well financed, so it can afford this stuff for you. The other example again is an enterprise created by a student who decided that one of the subjects in his secondary school, and it's in your secondary school because all secondary schools include it, decided that that subject was going to be the basis of his enterprise. And I want you to tell me what that subject is. By the way, it is not computing. So take computing out of your brain. By the way, this enterprise I'm talking about is the largest one in North America, and it's more than 100 employees.
Someone said science.
No, too general.
A lot of people saying English.
English. Nope.
Some people saying math.
Nope. Nope. Math is nope.
Life science or food science.
Nope.
Let's see.
Although some of those are tall, decent answers, right?
Yes. Business.
Nope.
Oh, we got one. History.
History. Bang on. I guess I want you to understand that your world has historical problems that need solution that people will pay for. By the way, this 100 employees all have multiple degrees and are paid professionally. So we're not talking about some little Mickey Mouse operation in someone's basement. We're talking about a full-fledged North American scale enterprise solving historical problems. Ladies and gentlemen, open your mind to the kinds of problems you enjoy solving. And don't make a foolish assumption about whether you could or could not make a livelihood at it. So oddly enough, while the school does not want you gaming in the middle of your classroom, gaming in the right circumstance, as for the math teaching, could be a very valuable thing to do, don't you see? So we're asking you to be thoughtful, to think about the kinds of problems that your mind enjoys. And if I haven't found that yet, keep looking. And then when you have, look not for the most accessible problem, but the most important one. Those students doing the math venture know perfectly well that teaching math is difficult for many students, and that improving the ability to teach mathematically increases the range of productive work that men and women can do. Socially important, economically important to families, important to individuals, and important to the economy. Historical example, entirely the same kind of thing. The company has clients that are involved in really serious issues that affect society, its regulation, its public services, its government, and its charitable sector. Important problems by anyone's definition. So that's what this afternoon is about. We want to give you a little time for Q&A in a moment. I want to recast our career question again. Those dumb questions really actively annoy me. And then you annoy me when you answer them with a answer like an occupation. If someone asks a question of you sensibly, what are your objectives in your career? Now that's a kind of sensible question. Your answer should really, for all of you, every single person on this call, I've lost track of all 332 of you. That answer is the same with respect to career. And that is, my goal is to achieve the potential of my talent without compromise. That should be it. And as you develop over the years, the problems you solve get ever more difficult because you now have the experience to solve ever more difficult ones. And the one you end up not solving is the one you are working on when you drew your last breath. And then someone will say about you, your friends or family, a life well lived. That's the game you're involved in. That's the real answer to the question. Oh, and by the way, just as a sidebar, if you want to spook some older person, frame your answer like that and then see what happens. Just, see what happens. See what happens living in a world where people don't even expect unconventional answers, never mind unconventional aspirations. And talent often requires unconventional aspirations. Now, happy to take some Q&A. Farah will also manage that.
Yes, we're a little short for time, but I'll ask some of the questions that you put in the Q&A or chat. Let's see.
Ask any questions, I'll start talking again, and you'll all be sorry you didn't ask questions.
So there's one question asking, what problem are you working to solve?
Personally?
Yes.
If you mean personally, oh yes, well, several. I work on one of the problems I constantly do and have been doing for all these decades is the problem of what the economy is going to do tomorrow, because that's very important for the management of the economy. Probably the most important problem I am continuing to solve is how to teach students more effectively, which is broken into two pieces. How can I figure out what the students need to know? What's the most important thing they need to know? My biggest problem is making sure I am teaching them the thing that is most useful to them. And then, of course, the second important problem there is how can I learn to teach it more effectively than I did last year. I saw one chat question that was, how do I find the problems you enjoy? Try lots of different ones. If you haven't found a problem you enjoy solving yet, then look for lots of them. Other questions?
Tiana is asking, how do you recognize your full potential or the talent that could bring you to your potential?
Well, it is a voyage of self-discovery. There is no easy answer to that question. That's why it's such an important question. It's not a trivial question to be answered with one sentence answers. The real answer, and this may not be something you want to hear, but I'm not going to patronize you. The real issue in terms of the answer rather is it is an exploration. It's a journey. There is you sense your potential. It is of course to be constantly testing yourself with respect to to the problems you're solving. So you are always trying to put yourself into an uncomfortable position, not what teenagers are normally like to do. But if you want to explore your potential, you actually will never know what it is until you hit the limit, and you will never hit the limit until you keep pushing. And from my point of view, you push for the rest of your life. So it is a discover. You discover your potential. You can't automatically find it, because that's what being a work in progress is about. Because as you gain experience and education, I hope you understand that your ability to solve the problems should rise. Your talent is being developed. Other questions?
I think this is a good question. How do you work on a problem without having the regrets later on?
I didn't. Sorry, say it again, please. I didn't hear the question.
Yeah. So how do you work on a problem without having regrets later on?
Well, first you need to know that it is impossible to make sure that never happens. There's like if you're doing aggressive work, if you're solving problems, occasionally it may not work out. You may tackle a problem and you and the people working with you may not be able to solve it. And you could say, well, maybe I wasted time in that. Well, you haven't actually, because you now know a particular strategy doesn't work. But there is no way to live one's life in the absolute assurance you will never say, I should have done something differently. I will say, however, that you can reduce the odds of it by making sure your time and energy is being applied to the most important things, the things you care about, and the most important things that society cares about. Because that's, of course, why society should give you money, because you're doing something they really care about, and it's something you have to care about, and together that's a harmony of interest that will drive your problem solving ability to a very high level and start pressing your talent.
So I think we were a bit short for time, so I'll do one last question, and then
Okay.
I'll pass it on to Larry to do your last words. So with so many problems in the world, what sets an important problem apart from the others?
Oh, the ones that are systemic. So some problems underlie other problems. Yes, we have like a million problems on our planet. Surely I don't need to tell you that. So our planet is in rather difficult shape from climate and of course a whole range of other things. It's why I want you all to be solving the most important problems, because we need every talented person applying their energies to make a better world. We need billions of people doing this. So here's an example, like at least in my mind, education underlies so many other problems because people don't have either enough education or appropriate education. Then that sets off a huge array of other problems because it wastes talent, and wasting talent is the last thing we should do on this planet. Another one is, of course, healthcare, because it is not impossible for a child to thrive in school, for instance, if they're not getting the nutrition they need to keep their brain being developed properly. Housing is another systemic problem. It's a little hard to see how someone could profit from their education if they don't have a safe home in which to live and in which to do homework and in which to study. So like from my point of view, do you see how you can create a cascade of problems and they connect to each other and go forward? So you're looking for systemic problems that are interconnected to other ones that have, or another way to look at it is a high leverage point. If I could help provide housing, I will also contribute to the education of those students. If I can contribute to the education of the students, I can improve a whole range of social and economic challenges.
Awesome. Thank you. So before I wrap it up, Larry, did you want to just say your last words?
Yes. Well, hopefully my last words forever. I should never say last words to an old man. I do want to say one thing, and I say to everyone listening with the greatest seriousness. I take the subject we've talked about very seriously. I'm at the university instead of retiring because I think talent is the most important thing to nurture, and I try to solve the problems associated with the obstacles that talent faces. So what I wish for you are these things. I wish for you to find problems to solve that you truly enjoy. I wish you to be true to who you are, to your values, because you owe both of those things to yourself. I will also wish you to be kind to others because you owe that to them. And really, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last indispensable ingredient. I wish you courage to pursue all of those goals without compromise. I wish you every success, ladies and gentlemen.
Amazing. Thank you, Larry. That was an amazing presentation. I know a lot of people learned a lot from that. And I'm sorry for, thank you for sending all your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't go through all of them. But there is two more workshops happening right after this. So there's one, Why Are You Boring with Jackson and Holden, and also Financial Literacy, Making Smart Financial Decisions with Tracy Holbert. So thank you everyone for joining. And please join one of those if you're interested for the next workshops. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Larry.
All right.